Welcome to Fireteam Chat, IGN's Destiny show. Thank you so much for joining us. The animated gentleman to my left here is James Duggan joining us today.
Hello, Guardians.
And then Sean Finnegan.
Chomp chomp.
And on today's show, we are going to talk about the Destiny 2 review, which should be live by the time you watch this on IGN. And of course, we need to talk about the raid and maybe a little bit about Trials of Osiris. We'll get to that in just a second, but first, a word from our sponsor. Take it away, Naomi.
Hey guys, in celebration of the recent console release of Destiny 2, IGN has teamed up with Turtle Beach to give you a chance to win a Stealth 600 for PlayStation 4. Just head on over to go.ign.com/fireteam giveaway to enter. Good luck, Guardians, but for now, back to you guys.
Thanks, Naomi. All right, guys, so the review is out. We landed on an 8.5. How do you guys feel about that? Do you feel that's fair? Do you have any questions about it?
I don't know if it's hard to say if it's fair. I read what you wrote and I agree with a lot of what you wrote. I don't really envy anyone who has to score a big game like this. Mm-hmm. I think personally, if I was going to score it, I might have gone a little lower just because personally, I kind of hold it against the game that it doesn't have some of the features that I would have come to expect that Destiny 1 had, like, custom matches, that kind of thing. Ammo synths, little things like that. Mm-hmm. When the sequel doesn't have these games or doesn't have these features or things in it, that irks me a little bit. But that's not everyone's perspective, and I do understand that you have to judge the game by itself and not in relation to its predecessors. So it's a tough spot to be in.
Well, definitely we looked at the predecessor when we were discussing some of the systems and investment game things that they have in the product. What was bothersome to me was mostly that you could queue into a strike, and if it wasn't the one you want, you just bail. So you're either abandoning somebody or they're abandoning you. Same thing in PvP. You go into a competitive game type. It happened to me yesterday, and I was able to capture a very specific example for the review. I hop into a PvP mode. Immediately, 2 people leave after the first loss, and I'm just like, great.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's convenient to queue up in one place, but when that convenience gets in the way of functionality, I think that's a problem.
I love zipping around from planet to planet. That's all great. But it starts impacting gameplay a little bit when you're just abandoned.
I think your score is on point. I would have even skewed a little bit higher, I think. But maybe that's just because I was not expecting much. I played the first game just through launch of vanilla, and my experience was abysmal. It totally felt like a proof of concept to me. And I understand that it was iterated upon after that with these patches and expansion drops and things like that. But coming into Destiny 2, after having not played since launch, I was blown away by being sidetracked by public events, being sidetracked by lost sectors. The progression felt fantastic until 265.
Yep.
At which point, you hit a wall that is poorly designed around, and you have to do all these things to kind of circumvent the system that was put in place to keep you at that light level.
Hey, it's so simple. All you have to do is get a higher light level thing with a legendary mod on it, but you have to remember that the legendary mod
doesn't affect your base power level.
Yeah, I know. And then you roll a second and third character if you really want to be optimal, and that, of course, is just not great because everybody...
the mod system's weird.
Yeah, who considers themselves a hardcore player is going to take that most optimal route to progression to 305. But... if that involves rolling a second character and doing the exact same content on the same class, I think that's a bad experience and a bad decision, and that is my only major gripe with Destiny 2. I thought the rest of it, including the raid, which we'll talk about, was superb. I really liked it.
Yeah, so Sean, you had a pretty stable experience on my PlayStation 4 Pro. Regular crashes. I mean, you can watch the stream archive.
That's
and
crazy
see it
to me,
crash on stream. And then a lot of Bungie issues. Like when we completed the raid, actually, Duggan, our whole team was wiped. I saw... at least 2 other instances. This happened to Arex, this happened to Fran, where the whole team is wiped and you cannot collect the treasure at the bottom of the
Bummer.
Wow,
of course, it does get
crazy.
mailed to you. We did still get the rewards for it.
But you don't get the trophy. You get no other indication that you actually completed it. Your clan progression does it in advance.
Yeah.
And you do get mailed the rewards.
It's definitely a bug that I think needs to be sorted out because it left a very bad taste in our mouth for what was otherwise, I think, a very good experience at least, but we're going to talk about.
And I never had any experiences like that on Xbox. There were for a couple hours on one day, I think a few days ago, that I got the sheep error a couple times trying to party up with people in the fire team. But I went to Bungie's Twitter and there was a, hey, we know people are experiencing the sheep thing on Xbox right now. We're working on it. Within like 2 hours, it was fixed. So I just soloed for a little bit and it was all right.
They've been very responsive.
Yeah, no crashes to desktop, nothing like that. Everything that seems to be problematic in terms of the game or like server-side issues with Bungie's networking and stuff and not like a bug that crashes the actual app and stuff.
I never had a hard crash, and I was on PS4
Regular.
Yeah, so it seemed you were saying off air before we rolled that it seems to be a PS4 Pro.
Yeah, Sony's actually responded. It seems to be a Sony issue. They're working with Bungie to try and figure out what it is, but it's a PS4 Pro specific issue, and that's a bummer because anybody that bought a Pro
Yeah.
and wants to play in 4K
Yeah.
has more difficulty doing that, is going to encounter more frequent crashes.
All in all, I think your score is very fair. Like, it's funny because, this is what reviewing is at IGN. You said you would have gone a little higher. I personally would have gone a little lower. We all have these discussions. That's why I do not envy the spot that AAA game reviewers are in, making
Absolutely.
hard decisions
a
like
single
that.
person, like at some point you just have to be subjective because trying to be objective is only going to muddle up the process. I
Well,
think.
like I hit that wall that you were just talking about. I was raid ready. I literally had cleared everything. I'm like, well, I could do the adventures for some lore, but that's not going to get me a higher light level, right?
Sure.
I'm excited to play them, but when you're trying to gear up for the raid,
It's about progression.
it's about progression, and they don't progress you. I would have liked it if they actually had a reward for completing all the adventures in one location. Besides your map being clear.
Yeah.
That would have been kind of cool, like a powerful engram or something.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to go off on was like I was convinced that they would take the Taken King's quest system and expand on it exponentially. It seems like they haven't. Like, anyone remember the Taken King quests? When you finish the campaign, and even after you do the raid, there are some of them are 20-step long quests that go on for ages, for weapons, for all that stuff.
You like those?
Yeah, it's just more stuff to do, and it tells a story about the lore and about the weapons, and you're learning things about cool characters like Rasputin and stuff. There are a couple cool quests in the game now, but I can count them on one hand. Like, there's less than 5 of them, and I wanted more of those. That would be another reason personally I would have docked it.
Jumping off on your point, one thing that really bothered me is one of the missed opportunities of your subclasses. So you get your first one, you kind of go on this cool story adventure about getting your light back, right? And sort of powering up. It's fun, it's cool, and you get this cool cutscene. Now, the cutscenes are retained for the additional subclasses, but the way you initially get it is it's literally a drop in the world. So, like, if you haven't completed your first one, you can actually look at the third one when it drops in the world, and it's just sitting there.
Yeah,
it's just like loot.
I didn't know anybody who didn't get all 3 subclasses, or at least the item to enable that quest by the time they had completed the campaign.
Yeah.
My issue isn't that. It's not about acquiring it. It's that there should have been a narrative tied to it, as opposed to just, all right, you got it, go do public events. By the way, you're doing your flashpoint anyway, go do public events. And how do you level? Go do public events.
Again, to bring up the Taken
Okay.
King, when they introduced the 3rd subclass for the first time, it's tied to the fact that we've discovered that this old sect of guardians existed that we never knew about, and you're discovering their power.
Exactly.
And it was
That's
really
so
cool.
cool.
So you were like, I'm a Titan. We have this long legacy, but there's this other part of the history of Titans that we never knew about, and it's a whole new power. It was really cool to discover, and there's nothing really
And now it's like
that
a
in this
cookie
game.
cutter. There's even a point where a ghost, when you go to do it a second time,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we've seen this before.
Yeah.
Who's ready for a long story? Here we go.
Yeah.
Like, he's kind of like
Literally
satirically
making
making
fun
fun
of
of it.
it. Yeah.
But whatever. That's resources that they have to commit to. How many? 9 different specializations.
But it's such an integral part to your character,
I suppose.
and their lore and the lore of the world of Destiny. It's just strange that it's a loot drop that you power up via public events.
Well,
Public events are great.
Yeah,
I
they're-
love running the public events. I love solving the puzzle of the encounter.
Said it multiple times on last week's episode too, but I think they overall nailed the PvE aspects of the game. My gripes mainly are with a little bit of less, like, not so robust quest systems, and then mostly with the PvP.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of
Let's
PvP.
talk PvP. Yeah. Go ahead, Duggan.
Well, no, you're gonna transition.
Oh,
You
yes.
got it.
So all I was gonna say was
Great transition, guys.
PvP. How do you guys feel about the team-based mechanic? Basically, if you're not in a team, you're dead. In
So-
Destiny 1, you had an opportunity to one-man it.
Yeah,
But
I want
that's
to.
not going to happen.
I want to preface this by saying I haven't tried Trials yet. It opened up this morning, and
I played it
haven't.
this morning.
I'll be jumping into it this weekend, so I don't really have the hardcore perspective in this game yet. Although I played tons of Trials in the first Destiny.
If you want to see, by the way, go to IGN, watch the stream archive. Just skip the first half because I was nervous and I played very badly.
Well,
Because I
it
had
happens.
no idea what I was doing, but then I cleaned it up.
Yeah, so
Back half, don't worry about it.
I kind of don't like the idea of you basically are required to team shot and roll in groups. I don't like that because I personally am the type of player who I love to flank and I love to lone wolf it. And I liked if you were a player of high enough caliber and a high enough skill that you could feasibly lone wolf it, get a quick pick, and turn the tables for your team right up front just really, really quickly. Now it's like you're almost never going to pick someone before they pick you or before someone comes to help them if they're rolling in a team. And I kind of don't like that because, yeah, it forces you to be very group-oriented and you know, that makes it especially hard to, I solo queue a lot. It makes it especially hard to just play quick player competitive on your own.
Yeah.
That said, I could totally be wrong about this and in trials have that be all the cool, like the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I was really nervous about Trials of the 9. I got to break that habit of calling it of Osiris. But going in, but when you hop in there, the competitive aspect's still there. It's Countdown this week. It's going to rotate to Survival. I don't know how it's going to translate to that mode, but in Countdown, man, it feels like you're playing Trials. You're calling out flanks. You're calling out where the enemy locations are. You're team shotting, which is what you're supposed to be doing in that mode anyway. You're supposed to be working together sort of as a cohesive unit. I really, really liked it. And then the Lighthouse style reward was really interesting. It's very... I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but I'll tell you this. You have to get 1 win to even be able to go to the Lighthouse. So basically, you can get there now, but to ascend to the top level rewards, you have to get more wins.
Oh, interesting.
So it incentivizes players at any level to go to this new space and gather the rewards. So there's a 1 for 1 win. I think you get a powerful engram, and then there's 1 for 3 or 4 wins. I literally played it once, so I don't know the exact details. And then, of course, there's 7 wins, and then there's 7 wins flawless. And it's a regular
so it's not
card.
9 anymore.
It's 7 wins.
Right.
Yeah. You can actually just go to it in the Crucible during the weekends, and if you want a card, you just go in.
Cool.
No more microtransactions, or not microtransactions, but consumable items. Yeah. You just kind of go in, and if you want to wipe your card, you just go to that same menu item. Yeah, you go to that menu item, and you delete the card, and you start over.
Interesting. Yeah, I was a sweaty Trials player in Destiny 1, so I'm excited to give it a try this time around. Some of the overall PvP hangups I have to do with how they changed the TTK in the game and the gunplay.
Yeah.
You know, I think that if you get stuck with a grenade, you should die in one shot.
Yeah.
Like instead of nerfing, and I get that the reason Bungie changed the damage was because too many people were using fusion grenades in close quarters where you could just turn the corner, stick someone, and then bounce out.
Let me ask
But to
you
me,
this.
nerf the stickiness, not the damage.
Yeah.
You know, it should be hard to stick someone, but if you stick someone,
if you land it.
if a grenade explodes
Halo?
on your face, you should die. Like
It's very, very shooter centric. I think that my experience has been the same, where ability usage for the most part is inferior to just shooting somebody in the face. Obviously, there are situations where that doesn't apply. However, we talked about shoulder charge. I don't want it to one-shot people, but it just feels bad. Like you hit somebody with it, and more often than not, you
don't even take down their shield.
Yeah.
And
now there are mods.
I'm a Titan.
Yeah,
So
there
just
are
real
mods
quick,
that increase your damage to certain things.
I get
and
that.
I've been hurt more.
So minor though,
Yeah.
you know. And here's the thing: I'm a Titan, right? And the whole Striker Titan thing is, in close quarters, a fist is better than any gun.
No, it's not.
Except I have to melee someone 3 times in order to kill them if they have
little
full health
boxing
and
match.
shields. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I'm supposedly supposed to have the strongest melee in the game.
Well,
But
in the
like, it's
Bungie
just-
Weekly Update, Sean, how do you feel about them mentioning that they're bringing back Armor Lock? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man.
Just kidding.
I'm very much looking forward to playing on PC. I know, so my experience with the PC PvP, though it was all hand cannons all the time, I had a much better experience on there in terms of situational awareness, being able to react to people behind me, being able to 1v2 or potentially even 1v3 felt a lot better, because I feel like a lot of what's bad about going up against team shots is you will hover over somebody and then somebody will run behind them and your aim assist will drag your cursor.
That
Yes,
happens a
that's
lot.
weird.
It's awful.
Yeah.
It feels bad, and I want a mouse and keyboard right now.
It's always happened, and even
I'm
in
like, all right, I'm
Destiny
gonna
1.
get this guy. Nope.
Yeah, or you're shooting someone, and because it takes so long to kill them,
Yeah.
you know, when you're in a firefight, you're shooting and you're strafing back and forth. So basically, you have 2 opponents who are going like this, and if you're going back
Some
and forth,
errant
if someone
guy.
just pops in the frame, it's like, ugh, try to shoot this guy, and you're like, no, stop! I want
No,
to finish
the
that
guy
guy.
one
Yeah.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't feel great. I've gone into the Crucible expressly for weekly powerful engrams.
Yeah.
And it's not something I would do willingly, though that being said, I'm totally going to eat it up on PC, but I would love to see more ability usage. Another gripe I have is everybody gets their super at the same time, and like the smart person will just not use it while everybody's supering each other.
Yeah.
But you get it and you're like, I must have gotten it first. Whoosh, and then
Yeah.
And then somebody
Or it's
counters it.
counter supers, yeah.
Yeah.
The
You
other
can actually see up top. So what I do is exactly what you said. I'm like, I'll wait till at least 2 people use their super before I hit start.
The other thing I don't like about it is heavy spawning every minute, power ammo spawning just about every minute. I hate playing for like 30 seconds or a minute and then getting a rocket in the face. Like, let the match get going before like you're changing it with power weapon drops. It just seems very ridiculous. Oh, and I haven't seen anyone who is actually good at the game playing with anything besides rockets. Rockets just seem to be like the go-to.
Sword.
I've seen shotgun as
Yeah, but
well.
a good player will never get meleeed with a sword unless, like,
I don't know. I think I probably agree for the most part.
like in competitive, when you can see someone coming on the radar from like miles away, you'll never even get within melee range.
You can see them, but the way the map's designed, it does make it a little trickier.
Truth, I haven't played
Yeah.
the actual map.
So like when you
yet.
go in, you don't really know the surroundings at first, but once you get adjusted and acclimated, it's a lot harder to get killed with a sword.
Yeah, especially because you're going to be grouped up, like your team.
Yeah, right.
You know, you might sneak in and get one, but there's no way you don't. There's no way you don't, at best, trade.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it's fine that Destiny for me is a PvE first game. I have Counter-Strike, I have Overwatch, I play PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I will do Crucible on PC, and hopefully it'll be a better experience than it was for me on PS4. But if it's not, and I really only do it for rewards, I'm okay with that because the PvE offerings, like the Raid, are so plentiful
Yeah, definitely.
and good.
So we settled on an 8.5. We felt that the game was great. That's great on the IGN scale. There was just a few small things holding it back from going any higher than that. But the Raid was fantastic. We're going to talk about the Raid right now. So if you do want to avoid spoilers, we are going to get into mechanics and impressions. So here we go. Dug in. We ran the Raid. We ran it for 12 hours.
It was fun. I had a great time.
12
actually.
hours. It was great. I think I only got ragey really bad one time.
No, you were
Really?
good.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can you confirm this that
Yeah,
you
I
only
can
raged
confirm.
like one time.
I can confirm that he was only on tilt maybe once.
Because again, I've told this story before, but I used to sit next to Destin during Destiny 1,
Oh, God.
and he used to rage way more
I
often
don't know
and
if-
for littler
so,
things than the
Destin
raid.
and I have a thing, and this applies to our work dynamic as well, where we will both have the same idea, and I'm able to communicate it in a way that pisses people off less. So there was a time where one of our raid members, we'd just been raiding for a long time, and he was not understanding the gauntlet mechanic.
Yeah.
And so we literally sat everybody down, like remember the Titans, take a knee, guys. And I explained it front to back very calmly. He totally got it. And there was one thing that he was hung up on, and then we one-shot it right after that.
Yeah.
It was a really good experience, and I think we'll jump into this topic eventually. But I thought the final encounter was superb, and I was in the throne room instead of going into the portal, or as Destin calls it, going outside. And you went into the portal, and you had the exact opposite experience.
Oh yeah, the Shadow Realm is the worst, man.
So
the worst.
What's it? You got your Andros face, and you have to call out the logos on the top of his face.
Yeah.
And he's sucking you towards him the
Oh
whole
yeah,
time.
the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll describe the encounter. I mean, let's talk about general impressions first, and then before we get to that battle, I want to start with what I like because really, I'm going to talk about that final encounter and how much I hated it extensively. What I really liked about the raid, I thought the lore behind it is cool. I love the art. I think it's really cool that that whole area is brand new art that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
New color scheme,
It
all
looks
that stuff.
New enemy
Amazing.
models,
It's
even though it was
Yeah.
pulling on the Cabal. And like,
You brought up it's like very
animation.
Greco-Roman, kind of like this wine and dine sort of culture. Like it's very
The last boss has a wine.
it's very reminiscent of the Roman Empire's aesthetic and Greek empires before they fell, right? Which is really cool. I love all of that stuff. I didn't like that the whole raid that there's literally one boss in it, just one. And you're not really fighting anything other than killing ads. It's very, very mechanics heavy. And I don't like that because I feel like while it is very fun to figure out the puzzles and learn them with your team, and I totally love that aspect of it, I do think that you should be figuring out those mechanics and puzzles to unlock damage phases, which test your gun skill and your teamwork. And I don't think that the raid does that at all.
so as much as I agree with you, I am fine with this being as mechanics heavy, and I totally had that sentiment by the time we got to the arena and realized I wasn't going to fight a boss until like, the final guy. But I hope this is a one-off for them, and I'm fine with that. I really like the idea that like this was top-down design, and what I mean by that, top-down design means you take the thematics and the aesthetics of what you're trying to do, and that
informs all your decision
informs
making.
all the mechanical design.
Yeah.
And so as a result, I just want to read a little excerpt from this is the collector's edition, and this is a letter.
Could have just brought it in. You know, I have it at my desk.
Well, I just printed it out.
All right.
This is a letter from Emperor Callus to the Guardians. Upon my ship, I have prepared a welcome befitting an Emperor's champion. I have baths, gardens, arenas and halls, arsenals of arms and armor, libraries of legend and documents, specimens, treasures, beasts to slay, games to quicken the heart or stimulate the circuitry, or whatever you please. But most of all, I have prepared tests. And it's basically a chronicling of his, because he was betrayed by everybody else in the Cabal. He went out and he kind of found the darkness, so to speak, and he's come back and now he's testing you because you've beaten his greatest adversary, who is Gaul. And that, from a top-down perspective, being a bunch of these games that he has intentionally created for you to experience, I think is awesome.
So I've told you guys about my comparative character for the Emperor, and it's Arcade from the X-Men or even Mojo. What those two characters would do is they would put the X-Men through a series of challenges that would like force them to use their mutant abilities to figure out how to like break the puzzle or stop it. And I kind of love that idea that a Cabal is, because actually when you go below the puzzles and everything, you can see all the mechanical items and things that he has been creating to build this encounter for you at the end of the raid.
It's like going
throughout
behind
the raid. It's
wall
like
and Portal.
Yes, yeah.
You see all the inner workings.
It's so neat, and I love that. And then there's additional incentives beyond the encounters of finding the 7 chests, finding the chests that you can open with the tokens that you acquired for beating the raid for the first time. And I love those little things. I love stuff like that.
Sure.
I do too. I mean, honestly, that's part of what makes the raids so awesome for me. I just also, as someone who always wanted Destiny to be a little bit more of a gun skill game, found it to be a little lacking in that regard. Like 90% of the hangups my raid team had in completing it were just about figuring out what the mechanics were and then executing. Once you knew what you were supposed to do, minus the final raid boss, which we'll get to, it was pretty easy. It's like to actually do it, because
like once we got the gauntlet, it was like
and I was talking to Duggan about this over lunch, but I think like previous raids like Vaults of Glass and particularly King's Fall strike this really good balance between you have to figure out mechanics, execute on those mechanics, but also be really good at shooting things. Like, so for instance, Oryx, right? You got to activate the platforms, you got to jump on the raised invisible platforms, you got to kill the knights, you got to kill the ogres, but more importantly than just killing those things, you have to make sure you're killing them in the right order and the right time so that you're stacking the orbs properly, and that's how you do damage to the boss. So there's this, you're not only executing on the mechanics, but you're also killing things, and you have to kill them right, and you have to kill them fast.
Yeah.
There's not really that mechanic anywhere in the raid up until the final boss, and in the final boss, I was in the Shadow Realm where that whole time that whole part sucks.
Yep. Don't go there next time. Go inside. You'll like that a little bit more, because that's
a lot
all gun game.
So I think I agree. The entire raid, you're doing things that are not necessarily like core Destiny combat, with the exception of the first encounter where you're just standing on a plate and killing the bathers that come out and stuff like that. But after that, right, you're sneaking, you're running and jumping, you're shooting panels on the wall, and you kind of have this pent-up aggression at that point. Like, I want to shoot something in the face. I want to shoot a big baddie in the face. And when
you do kill the dogs, but they're dumb.
So, well, that was the other thing. Is like after the dogs encounter, I found myself wanting to go back to the Castellum, where you're just killing waves and waves of ads and trying to grab the staves. And I was like, that's not a good feeling to have, like to want to go to the beginning room.
For me, I had that same feeling, and I totally agree, and I think your criticism is absolutely valid. You get to the end encounter with Emperor Callus, and it basically splits the raid into two. Half the people go into this Shadow Realm, which sounds like is awful. And the other half go into the throne room, and Dustin and I were both in the throne room. And the throne room experience, I thought, was superb. Like 9 or 10 out of 10 raid mechanics. I loved it.
You liked getting bounced up in the air?
Well, I was able, so I was blaming RNG a lot when I was progressing through it, but then once I realized, like, just avoid the shield guys, or better yet, get Skyburner's Oath and shoot them.
Or just knock them out first.
It was this huge
or the
battle
sweet
arena.
PlayStation exclusive sniper.
Oh, yeah.
Wait,
so
we need to talk about.
Are we
That's a whole other thing.
Are we
That's
getting to this final boss encounter now?
We are, but let me just
okay.
set up the fact that the throne room, listening to the call-outs of the folks in the Shadow Realm, jumping and running and jumping and just punching a Scion in the face and hitting the right one, going back, having to dodge the Emperor's big AoE, his laser beam, the knockups of the shields, all this stuff. It totally fulfilled that core combat fantasy that I feel like you felt the raid was missing. And I feel like that's because you were in the Shadow Realm, which tell us what that is.
Totally sucks, man. So let's move on to the final boss encounter. I was in the Shadow Realm. We had, I don't know, it was really tough, man. We wiped maybe 30 or 40 times, it felt like, and a good maybe like 6 or 7 of those, I would say, okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe not 30 or 40, maybe like 20 or 30 times, but like a good...
We were there for 6 hours, so 20 or 30.
A good 6...
I believe it.
Yeah, a good 6 or 7 times were heartbreaking wipes, like sliver of health left, shield coming down, like we're getting to that last phase, like, and we just don't have the dips or whatever it is. But I was in the Shadow Realm, and in the Shadow Realm, what happens is there's this giant Andross-style head who opens his mouth and sucks you in, and you're being pulled along the ground. And there are these 3 levels. They're like little clear sort of humps. They're like speed bumps, essentially, that you get caught on. And those are supposed to prevent you from flying any closer towards him, because if you get sucked into his mouth, you die.
Wipes everybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, no. You can res, but you don't have the amount... Well, you don't have a res token. Also, that person reses in the throne room.
So you can't
you do less DPS to skulls. So anyway, what happens is you're trying not to get sucked into his mouth, and this whole time you're calling out symbols on the big Andross,
which are different for each player.
Yeah, so every player sees a different skull or a different symbol on his head. You establish an order up front. I went first, Brian went second, Bagel Noob went third. We just call them out, and that signals to the people on the outside or the inside, whatever, the throne room, which Scion to kill, because they're also labeled. You kill the one that we don't call out, essentially. What I found so problematic about this was I feel like in some way, after wiping a bunch of times, that this is Bungie, like a very cruel joke played on
Guardians. You don't like our jumping puzzles?
Yeah, no.
All right.
Like a very cruel joke played on Guardians by Bungie, which is that what was the one thing in Destiny 1 that everyone always whined about, no matter what, no matter if you were a PvE player or a PvP player? Geometry, man. Everyone has said, what am I stuck on? Like trying to back up or trying to move, and you can't move, you're stuck on something. And so now Bungie has made geometry a main raid mechanic in the Shadow Realm. You have to get stuck on it. And the worst part is, the reason it's a cruel joke is because now when you want to get stuck on it, it only works like half the time. You'll be standing there a lot of the time, and you'll just get pulled off it for no reason. Like, nothing shot you. The Scion didn't launch you in the air. You didn't, you hit like a crack or something, or like a little rise in the ground, and you just go flying off it and into his mouth. And we wiped a good number of times for reasons that I felt were not in our control. And so that's why I was very frustrated in there. At some point, we called this the bagel maneuver, because this happened a lot, but we were all Titans on the inside, all Striker Titans specifically. If you get pulled off it, you can turn around and super try and charge back against it. And once or twice, he actually survived the whole thing and made it back. So that's the bagel maneuver. Shout out to Bagel Noob for helping us, by the way. That was killer. So yeah, it was very difficult in that to be able to kill the Scions, kill the glowing Scions, which if you don't kill them in time, wipes the whole raid. Avoid getting launched, and worry about just sometimes the mechanic not working. Yeah. So it was so rough in there that by the time we finally got him, there were a couple of wipes where I didn't even rage. I just sat silently for
broken. Yeah. By the time we were at the end, I would just sit there and just be like, yeah, okay, just start.
I really didn't like it. I like raid mechanics where I feel like I figured out the puzzle, I have to execute the puzzle, and because I'm good, I've now defeated the boss. This was more like, I really hope I just don't randomly get pulled over this shin-high little speed bump. Why not make it waist-high? What is the difference?
The thing you just described about being good, executing on it, figuring out the mechanics is exactly what I experienced in the throne room. It is so cool.
That's why I got to try the throne room next time.
There's this big AoE you're dodging.
He's calling out when he needs an assist. If he's going for the thing, he's like, hey, I need you to pull aggro.
Right. It's my teammates are covering me. Yeah. I put up a shield, have no health, and they're like, Chalice. I'm like, all right, I got to do it. And then you run and you jump and you punch a Scion in the face, and that barely saves your team in the Shadow Realm. So from that perspective, perspective, it was an incredibly positive experience
Yeah.
and definitely one of my of all my years of World of Warcraft raiding, this felt awesome. And the fact that we beat it by like a sliver and we died and whatever, but
Bugs me.
it was superb for me. So it's crappy to hear, and I can totally understand that sentiment because everybody we sent into the Shadow Realm was really over it by the end of it, and they were not having a good time. And 8 to 9 out of the 10 of every 10 wipes was caused by somebody flying off for no reason.
Yeah, and that's the thing
Like,
is
oh,
like
what happened? What? And they're like, yeah, don't go over there because of the thing.
Yeah.
It's just like
sometimes you fly off for a reason, but other times you don't. So there are the scions that glow that you have to shoot, and then there are these regular scions that spawn. And the regular scions that spawn, they have that new sort of launching ability. Like it shoots a little glowing
makes
thing
you
across.
launch.
Yeah, and it launches you up in the air. Obviously, if that happens, if you get hit by that, you'll get flown into his mouth. And so you have to kill those scions first. Every once in a while, when the mind's eye phase activates and you're looking at the skull, the thing will disappear and you'll just be sliding, calling, and you're trying to kill the scion at the same time. And that's fine. I like it being hard. But every once in a while, as soon as that scion spawns, he'll just do that ability. And there's no possible way you can kill him fast enough. So there were times when there was that getting launched was 100% going to happen whether or not you are good or not.
And you said
that
they'll
sucks.
take cover and shoot through geometry.
Yeah, so they have this new charge ability. They run like Naruto style. Like they just sprint by you. Like literally sometimes they'll just run by you to cover. It's so annoying. And so when they spawn, a lot of times they'll just run behind walls. And so it's sitting back there. You know it's back there. You know that eventually he's going to use his launching ability, but you can't hit him.
Can you grenade?
We're throwing grenades, like hucking them across the map. Because the other thing is, the wind is pulling you. You can't run. Like, you're very slow. You're basically crouch walking the whole time. So you're hurling grenades, trying to be like, is that hitting them? I don't know. Like, and you're just kind of hoping that they don't launch you. And there were a bunch of times wiping when like Bagel or Brian, who were in the Shadow Realm with me, would call out like, I can't see that dude. And I'd like look over, try and throw a grenade, and in doing so, I would hit an edge and go flying into his mouth. And it's just like, that sucks, man. It's a real bummer.
Yeah.
And so we even established like, okay, well, we'll spread out across the little like speed bump and we'll crossfire. That way you can at least kind of see behind the cover if they decide to go for cover. But the problem is, they really duck into that cover, and guess what? Their little launching ability, it goes through the cover, it goes through Titan shields. There's no way you avoid it.
So
if they shoot at you.
there's many reasons that you did not enjoy the Shadow Realm.
Oh yeah, and
But
like
when you come back in and you actually are DPSing the boss, how did you feel about that? About having to do callouts and move with the team and all that stuff?
I mean, honestly, I felt like that was the coolest part, and that's what I wish. That's the only part of the raid where, my gosh, like in King's Fall, it happens a bunch of times when it's like, we've done all the mechanics. Everyone look at the boss and fire and do as much damage as you can. That's the only part that felt at all like that. When you jump onto a platform and you see how many skulls you got, which is funny. Duggan was telling me you guys were getting 40 or 50.
Yeah. Which, by the way, we figured out. So there's a lot of hidden mechanics, and I kind of want to talk about those. And
We were getting 70 or 80.
So like the boss does this thing when you're, by the way, play the throne room. I feel like you're really gonna like it. But he puts his hands over his head and he starts like charging this big thing, and he gets a shield. And this happens a bunch of times, including the final phase, which we were not ready for. But
Which we were. Not ready for.
we would try and bring down his shield as quick as possible.
Yeah.
Supposedly, you're supposed to wait it out
Yeah.
a little bit. 'Cause
Slow
it gives
down.
More people time to kill the skulls
Yeah.
in the Shadow Realm. So, but that's
Interesting.
a little bit of a guessing game because you don't really know exactly when it's going to explode. It's just getting brighter and louder.
Like I didn't know. Once when I died in the Shadow Realm, I respawned in the outside and I saw him doing this thing, and it's difficult to see his shield when it's bright, when it's so bright in there. But on numerous occasions, Orbs for my bros, one of my teammates, would be like, slow down on dips so that we can give the skull people more time.
Interesting. I didn't even consider that.
Yeah, they would slow down their DPS, or they'd stop entirely and just focus on ads. And then when we're like, they're slowing down, we're coming out, they'd finish them up real quick because apparently you have to kill the shield.
Or he's just going to wipe the raid.
Yeah, before we come out of the Shadow Realm.
That's really
and so
interesting.
every time, unless one of us died, we were hitting high 60s, low 70s. One
That
time
would have
we
made the fight so much
one
easier.
time we hit 85. Well, the one time you guys said you did it in 4 phases. The one time we did it in 3.
Yeah.
And it's because all these things lined up. No one wiped in the Shadow Realm. No like scions, like rogue fucking
Interesting.
rogue,
Thanks, Sean.
rogue sort of like hit people up and stuff. Yeah. But coming out onto those platforms, knowing like when he raises his hand, like everyone off the platform and like jump down there and like move to the next platform. That felt like the most interesting part of the encounter for me. And I loved.
So I do have to make a counterpoint. You said you didn't like the puzzles. I like that it gave us something different to do as opposed to kill a big thing.
Let me rephrase though. So let me rephrase. It's not that I didn't like the puzzles. I love the puzzle mechanic. I wish it wasn't so puzzle heavy.
Yeah.
That's
so
all.
really, there's maybe the main one where you plant the flags. That's sort of a puzzle, right?
Well, the first
there's
one,
the baths.
kind of.
There's the dogs.
They're all puzzles.
They're literally all puzzles.
Like the first one, in the first one
you shoot stuff.
Well, in the baths, you're shooting urns, you're jumping on platforms. In the second one, you're stealth missioning and killing the hounds, which don't attack you. Side note. They don't even fight back. And then in the third one, you're shooting traffic lights and jumping through holes. Like,
which is cool. And it's, again, top down, but I totally get, especially getting to the throne room and then going into that shadow realm, and it's more mechanics and less like fighting stuff. But for me, it was all fighting stuff. And another thing that I just want to point out as like kind of a secret mechanic that isn't well articulated, which is a knock against the raid, is you come in to kill Emperor Callus, he spawns a bunch of ads, you kill those, 4 scions appear. Now, I'm not 100% on this, but like you and I were getting overwhelmed by ads because we would kill the scions before you go into the
Which
shadow
gives you
realm.
heavy, so it's
that's
a good
really
heavy ammo
interesting.
farming.
But if you don't kill them, like a third of the ads spawn.
none of us, even my raid team, never thought to kill them. Like, not once were we like, kill those dudes. Like, they'd spawn and we'd be like, are they shooting us?
No.
Okay, no, we're just gonna chill.
So it made it
makes
a lot
it
easier.
really
right. And
but it must do something else for the people outside. I don't
maybe
know.
it's going to be a hard mode trigger or something. I don't know if it'll be dynamic like that. And then finally, when you do come back,
farm heavy ammo on
you jump on the platforms, you shoot the boss, you jump off, and you do that 4 times, and then it goes back to kind of the initial ad rush phase.
Yeah.
The ads come in. I found it very effective to get them all in one place pretty much, and then super them, because that's going to give everybody orbs, everybody ammo, which is a problem if you don't do that. So there are all these levels to this fight that I think is very complex, very well thought out, with the exception of the thing that I have yet to experience, which is the Shadow Realm. So I think I'll probably, my score on what I think the raid is will probably drop extremely once I experience that, because that sounds awful. And I hate RNG like that, especially physics RNG, where you feel like you're in control and you're not.
I'm just sitting there. I'm like, we've killed all the scions. I'm just chilling. And it got to the point where you're supposed to just stand there. Yeah. But I was like, maybe if I crouch, more of my body will get caught on it. Nope, doesn't work that way. At some point, I'm just like, at some point, you'll just start flying away, like for no reason. Yeah. And it would just be funny because I'd see Bagel, he'd be like, hut, 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 and you like look over and he's turning around to super, then supering and being like trying to like ice climb his way back, like hammering the ground. It's so funny. So we had to name it. We were like, we're gonna call this the Bagel maneuver.
That's funny.
You talk about.
I really want to jump real quick, still on the final boss.
Sure.
Can we talk about loadouts and weapons?
Yes, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
All right, great.
So real quick though, I use Cold Heart. And Cold Heart was really good for dipsing the boss, but also if you're in the Shadow Realm, it's excellent at killing the skulls, because
killing
it
the
can
skulls,
kill.
By the way, gives you stacks that allow you to do more damage, and you need.
Let's continue explaining this. After you get towards Andross' face,
near the end of the count,
he stops sucking you in, and he starts shooting hella skulls just at you. And if they hit you, it does damage to you. But you shoot them, and the more of them you shoot and destroy, the higher your damage multiplier goes. And the goal is to get it as high as possible as you can, so that you can do more damage to him when you exit the Shadow Realm.
And then when we drop the shield, you come back.
We come out of it, and everyone gets that buff.
Yeah.
And you do damage
the
to
boss.
him. And again, the goal, like...
So loadouts, it sounds like Cold Heart for the both of you.
I used Cold Heart a lot.
I was not using Cold Heart. I was using Vigilance Wing, but if I had a choice and was in the throne room, I absolutely would have been using Skyburner's Oath. Yeah. Because again, shooting through the Phalanx shields and just killing them is so good.
So that's a scout though, right? And is it a primary?
It's a scout. I don't know if it's kinetic.
Okay.
I think it is kinetic. Maybe not.
So I was rocking double ARs because I had Actium Warpig, which constantly is refilling
Warpig.
Warpig. You're right.
Warpig.
I think
I love that.
Black Sabbath, right?
That's the new name of it.
Yeah.
Actium Warpig.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm shooting him, and I can do like maybe 70 rounds with a clip as opposed to the 31 that's actually in it. And then I swap to the energy one. But then I had the PlayStation exclusive Borealis sniper rifle, which has rotating damage modifiers, and the shields on the enemies when you're inside, I'll call it, or in the throne room.
Outside.
You're in an enclosed structure.
I know.
Anyway, so their damage types change, so you can just swap the modifier by holding square. And it is really dumb that they would give you a tool like that on PlayStation, but not on Xbox.
So let's talk. That's what we're driving at, which is that
Cold Heart
Borealis.
Yeah,
Cold Heart is a pre-order bonus, but two of the most effective weapons in the game. There's a good chance that a lot of for the raid and the final encounter specifically, there's a good chance that like a large subsect of the player base doesn't even have them.
Yeah, until
and
December,
they're locked,
you'll get Cold Heart
because they're
I don't know
locked
about Borealis.
behind.
It's silly. Like especially Cold Heart. I think Borealis, okay, that's a platform. I'm not competing with people on the platform. I'm going to play on PC, even though I played on PS4.
Yeah, but just like imagine if it was a world first raid, like it is like people race to the end
2 months after,
and there's like, well, you PC, but like let's say it was a PS4 team and an Xbox team. They're both on the encounter. They're both racing towards, and one team has this amazing weapon that helps you kill things way faster.
So I still
that sucks.
Well,
to be fair, the DPS that was popping up, mine was much higher, but I was using a sniper rifle that happened to be
mine
exclusive.
got higher because I was using Vigilance Wing on the DPS phase when an AR is just way better. Also, for some reason, the I always forget the name of it. The flame hammer, Sunbreaker hammers were doing terrible damage to the boss.
Yep.
And I ended up switching back to Striker.
Pulse grenades, wreck, everything.
Pulse grenades crazy. But anyway, I would just switch to a normal AR, and that would be my most effective DPS tool, the exception of Cold Heart. But like, so if you are not going to rock Borealis, you can still do Skyburner's Oath, right? That is giving you a big advantage in that fight that I think is arguably better or as good as Borealis, because heavy ammo.
None of this stuff has been optimized, by the way. We're just talking about early day impressions.
Right.
Eventually, I'm sure data will crunch the numbers and be like, "This is the optimal loadout."
Cold Heart. I struggle to think of a weapon that would be better. Maybe Sweet Business. But like, other than that, I think that is
Sweet Business.
Good.
I haven't gotten one yet, but I cannot wait to try it out with Actium or Rig.
The skulls. Cold Heart is incredibly good for the skulls, and also very, very, very good for the boss DPS.
That's why I ran an auto rifle main. I ran Skaithlock because I was killing skulls, and you have to kill as many of those as possible. So I used two weapons that would be very effective as killing those. And it just so happened that Cold Heart was also really good at dipsing the boss because he just stands there and you just shoot him in the head, and it's a single beam, not a lot of recoil. When you move to phase 2 in the chest. So it was really easy to land precision shots on a lot of them. So many times I was doing the most damage on our team.
I also think
I love
the low wall. That would be incredibly good on that phase. Where you're just
one thing that was difficult was we were very Titan heavy.
Yeah.
And so most of the time our supers would be up and we were just chilling.
So actually, on the final phase, you can apparently leave your platform and just go super him and slam him.
So I
don't think that's DPS effective.
On a couple it depends.
If it's basically pulse grenades, right? Because you can leave a pool of
way
damage
more
there.
than that.
And it could be quite effective. I haven't tried it out yet.
I don't know if it's effective, but like on a couple wipes where we came very close, and I was like, we need every little bit of damage I can get. I'm sitting here on this platform. I have no ammo. That was another big problem. I don't know if you guys had ammo problems.
Yeah,
I always had ammo problems. Yeah.
Rounding up the mobs, killing them all in the central place. That's like optimizing the fight so that nobody has these problems.
90% of the time, I got into the Shadow Realm and looked at my clip, and in my auto rifle, I would have like 33 in the main clip and then 27 in the backup, and that was it. And I was like, I'm never gonna make it. And that was another cause of the problem. Is like sometimes I'd kill one of the scions and I'd see like
ammo
primary, and I'd be like, and you have to like crawl over so that when he sucks you can like grab it and like as you're flying by.
You know what else is really good about Borealis is when you're not killing the scions in the throne room before you go into the Shadow Realm, you are light on heavy ammo or power ammo.
Yeah.
But Borealis, if you pop a shield of the right elemental type, it gives you a shot back.
Oh man, see.
Or wait, maybe it's just loads into the clip. It doesn't give you
from reserve.
Probably loads into the clip from reserve.
Yeah, but
anyway. So I found there to be ammo problems. So I would just jump on a couple times. I was like, I'm gonna go super him, and I jump off the platform, jump up onto him, and he doesn't stomp. Thank God, because normally you're just accustomed to things stomping you when you walk up next to him. And I would super and try and do damage to him, and I mean, it didn't really work, but I wish it did. I just wish there was also, I don't know. I wish Sunbreaker was a little better in that situation.
Yeah. Empowering Rift was really good.
Yeah, Empowering
that
Rift
helped
was really
a ton.
good. Yeah,
I could totally see. I think actually only 1 or 2 Titans are required for that fight. I think that would be better if it was Warlock heavy because of Empowering Rift, because of potentially maybe not Healing Rift, but
just
two
Warlocks
or 3, or even 4. So you had 1 Empowering Rift for literally every single platform.
Now that I'm thinking about it,
you don't need a lot of Striker ults.
We were also thinking about trying to use rally barricade on that.
Yeah.
And
For the reloads?
yeah, for both on the damage phase to the boss, but also killing skulls. And I don't know what it is, but we could not get it to work. Like
Rally barricade.
barricade
I hate it.
sucks,
I like the idea of it, but I hate number one being locked static behind it. You feel like you're in
So,
some kind of weird
numerous
cover shooter mode.
On numerous occasions, I would like just in prep, I'd be like, okay, is this gonna work? And I would cast the rally barricade, and I would automatically stick to it. And I'd be like, okay. And then I'd ADS and I'd pop up and I'm like, and then I'd let go and I'd go down and I was like, okay, cool, it works. And you just do it fast and you come up and down and stuff. I was like, all right, great. And then I'd be fighting and I would just be stuck down there. Like I'd ADS and I'd just be shooting the top of the shield and I'd have to stand up. And then I would, when I let go of the ADS, it wouldn't crouch me down, so it wouldn't reload me. It just bugged out numerous times, and we tried to use it because we thought it would help us like obtain more effective DPS, but it didn't. So we just canceled it.
So damage rifts. Damage rifts are the answer.
Yeah. Dude.
Final thoughts on the raid. I think
Or
we're
give
over
me
on time.
weapons of light, please.
But Sean, we'll start with you. Overall impressions of this raid in comparison to the others we played.
In comparison to the others we've played, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is worse than Crota.
Worse than Crota?
Yeah, I think it's the worst raid so far.
Really?
Yeah. Now, I don't want that quote to get taken out of context. I still enjoyed myself a lot of the time. Yeah. I do think it's a little too mechanics heavy. I wish there was a little bit more balance with fighting. Some of that may be addressed by not taking the Shadow Realm part and doing the throne room part on the final boss. But even then, it's a whole raid where you only kill one boss. Everything else is just trials. And I don't know if I like that very much. The puzzles are very fun to figure out, but I suspect that over time, when you're doing the raid over and over and over again, week to week on multiple characters, that will run like that. My interest will run thin.
I think you're going to get through it very quickly, and we also don't know what Prestige Raid has to offer. Maybe there will be more bosses that we actually have to encounter there.
Totally.
That building is ginormous.
These are my at the moment impressions of it. Right. Again, things I loved about it: the lore, the aesthetic, the huge space that you can explore, all of the potential secrets that are out there. So cool. Love that. I love that Bungie is experimenting, doing this stuff, but I always encourage people, like, think of what the player is doing on the, like, moment to moment in the encounters first before you, because, like, personally, the whole thing could be gray, black, and white for as long as it was fun.
You're about that colorblind.
Yeah, I am. Oh, can we talk? Yeah, can we talk really quickly about that? Just
the rings you were running.
On the, so I was one of the runners in the gauntlet, and I felt like I was at a distinct disadvantage. It's very hard to spot the red circle
from the blue.
Like there were numerous times. So my team agreed. If it's in the middle row, you call top and bottom.
Yeah.
Tell the shooters which row to shoot instead of being like, it's in middle, and they have to be like, okay, so top and bottom, right?
Yeah.
So on numerous occasions, I got better towards the end, where I was just like, just take your time, like really make sure you're calling out the right ones, because I would be like,
that's gotta be terrifying. For
I'd spot it.
Sean, don't be the runner next time.
Yeah. So first, I have to look very closely. Like I start and I scan across the top, middle, but it's in the bottom, and then I have to think middle, top, and then I say that. So a lot of times I'd be like, it's at the bottom, middle. No, bottom, top, like that kind of thing. And by then we already had messed up.
Yeah.
So Bungie, let's work on some
colorblind mode, Sean.
It is on. It doesn't.
Really?
Yeah, it's still not like. It's too close
that
to.
in particular, I feel like definitely needs to be considered. But anyway.
Yeah. So I felt
There's
that like distinct
advantage.
advantage. Yeah, I felt like at a distinct disadvantage there. Yeah. Again, we made it through because I really focused. I was like, raid mode. I was like, hyper focused on.
I'm colorblind also, and I was calling out the circle. I'm like, I see that's red, and chat's like, what are you talking about? So I'm like, am I wrong?
Yeah. See, you start to second guess yourself. Like,
but then I ran it last night, and no, I can definitely see the.
Yeah, like again, when I really focused and made sure just to take my time with the call. Like my problem was that I'd try and spot them real fast.
Yeah.
And then just make the call so that they could start shooting, because we were slow a lot of the times on those first attempts. But once you start figuring out the mechanics, you can take your time with the call, make sure it's right, and then you can get through it no problem.
Definitely.
But just to finish up, I want to go back and do the throne room and see if that changes my opinion. Overall, I'm a little lukewarm on it.
All right. Duggan?
I think that I agree with Sean in the point that, like, there was a lot of mechanics and not a lot of bosses, and that did irk me at some point. But having read this lore and understanding that it is a top-down design scenario where we are going there, it is trials, it is this Greco-Roman come to Olympus experience like the tests, I think it's very appropriate, and I love that as long as the raids that follow this are not that. I don't want a second raid that is super, super mechanic puzzle heavy. I want to shoot some stuff. And my outlet for that was the throne room, and I loved the throne room fight in spite of a couple of things that we got stuck up on. But overall, the experience for me, and I have nothing to base it on. I did not do Vault of Glass or any of the other raids in Destiny 1. My raiding experience comes from World of Warcraft, but the pillars are the same, which is establishing the strategy, communicating, and executing the strategy. And in that regard, I thought the Leviathan was superb. I really, really enjoyed it. I can't wait to go back. I'm not so much looking forward to doing the Shadow Realm, but we'll see.
Give it a try.
Maybe it won't be an issue.
I
doubt it, but you know.
I really liked it because most other raids have been just shooting stuff. This introduced new mechanics, different ways to work together as a team. Like, all right, get the dogs super low, then we kill them all at once because that's just optimal strategy. We get more time to work them down, and I like that. It was different. I like that it was different, and that you were able to still work together as a team. You still felt like you were accomplishing a goal. I still felt challenged in each mode. Going through it a second time, it's a little easier, but you're explaining to a new group of people how to do it for the first time.
Yeah.
So it takes that time to kind of get in that rhythm, but once you're in it, you know, it's going to be like clockwork.
Jumping off of that, I thought this was an extremely enjoyable raid to progression raid, which means you're figuring out as you go. You're not looking up guides. This is the first day. We're just going in and trying to figure it out. And it was super, super rewarding. The only one that I thought was opaque to the point where you would definitely have to look up a guide and it just doesn't make any sense. And you really, like, once you figure it out, you're like, all right, well, they could have done this 3 ways, is the arena where you're running around. Because we thought maybe, okay, you shoot the one that the red circle's on and then shoot it in an amount of times it's corresponding to its horizontal position. There were a bunch of ways to interpret that, so that was not presented in a way that was immediately decipherable. So beyond that, though, I thought that like figuring out what to do by ourselves organically may be the best progression rating experience.
I feel like I got it before our crew, and when everybody was like, oh, like, because we were talking about rotating as a team, and some players do it that way, but I'm all about reducing the amount of mechanics involved with the players who have to do the stuff on the outside versus the players that have to do the stuff on the inside. Anytime you're introducing movement to players in any of the raids, things start getting messy and there's more ways for you to screw up.
Totally.
So yeah, I was all about reduction.
So you guys, that was where you guys kind of had the hang up. We got stuck on, it took us forever to figure out that you had to shoot the pollination as it was happening.
I did it accidentally.
Oh, really?
Like our first attempt.
We were like, what do we?
Clockwork.
So like we maybe wiped like 5 or 6 times just pollinating stuff and being like, what are we doing with these crystals? Like, they can't just be sitting up here, like waiting to dips or whatever. So we were like, maybe we should try shooting stuff with it. And
I like that one a lot.
Did.
I like the idea of like almost kind of a Morpheus Neo scenario. You're telling these people where to go. No, there's an agent on your left. Take the right path or something. It's really cool. I had a good time.
I thought that was fun, but again, I just wish that when you activated the dips phase, it was harder.
Sean, you have a video of one of your teammates just running in a circle with a dog. It's so good. For like 5 laps.
Go to my Twitter and kind of scroll back a little bit. The video will be funny to you if you've done the encounter, but it is video footage of my team's elite ninja tactics where this is us scrambling to just not fail. And to his credit, Orbs from my bros and Bodum, who captured it, were laughing the whole time. And me and Brian on the other side were like, what's happening with that? They're like, we can't even explain it. You just have to watch this video. And it's a hilarious video, so check that out.
All right, we got to wrap it up, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be back next week. CJ did want to say he wanted to be here. He beat the raid before anybody else at IGN, and he actually came in and helped us finish it off.
Thank you,
one of our team members had to go to bed. So he will have his story next week. But until next time, Guardians out.
I didn't mess it up this time. Look at that.